Welcome back. In this one, you'll get to see me actually finish off the hot side. Mostly, 90%. It's pretty much going to be done. And I'm starting off here by cutting out the part that will be a conical adapter from the 3.5-inch turbo outlet to the 4-inch downpipe and exhaust. And just roughing it into shape and then running it over both a roller and a forming stake to turn it into the shape that I want. Why did I go conical when it's such a small gap? I could have done it out of a flat plate. Well, of course I could have, but, you know, why do something easy and quick when you can do something painstakingly slowly for a marginal benefit? I chose the marginal benefit. Besides, I kind of like the way it looks. And that will come up later, as in, like, in just a few seconds. There's another part that I'm making that I didn't need to, but I did it anyways. And here's the finished product. Well, mostly finished. Keep this one in mind. It will come up later. And now I am going to be replicating these stainless exhaust flanges that came with my external wastegate. And I'm going to be replicating them in carbon steel for a couple of reasons. One, I want to keep the stainless flanges on hand for if I decide to use this on another project, and I'm too cheap to buy a spare set, and I like machining and doing weird stuff like this, so I figured, hey, this is a perfectly good excuse to bust out a 4-jaw chuck and some drilling and, you know, sort of learn the processes of other things I'm doing, learning how to save time in the future, because this was the longest way I could have possibly taken to do this job. I know that, and now you will know that too. This is about the point where I started to goof up. See, I should have used this center hole and just chucked that up onto a long bolt or something like that, added a live center onto the back of it for support, and then started turning the outside diameter. Instead, I foolishly started to reach for the stars like Icarus and Daedalus, and well, that doesn't work out so well because now the hole is too big to fit on any convenient bolt, but too small to be grabbed by a 3-jaw chuck. So I kind of painted myself into a corner on that one, and you'll see me not figure out the way to get out of it other than I come up with some weird agglomeration of various bits and bobs I found around the shop. It spent way too much time on it, and the surface finish suffered because now the part was free to rattle and chatter as it was doing its thing. So there's a better way to do this, and I know that now, and I pretty well figured it at the time, but once I was in it, well, I was in it. There was no going back. This is kind of the mutant thing I came up with for one of them. Each one I made was actually different, and you can kind of see it wobbling in the jaw there. yeah, there was a lot of chatter, a lot of squeal, a lot of surface finish issues that came up as a result. But after screwing around and brute forcing my way through it, I did eventually figure it out and came out with a couple of flanges that do fit and will serve the purpose. So that part's good, but learn from my mistakes. If you're going to be trying to machine stuff and learn on your own, read a book first. Ask people that know what they're doing, or just watch somebody else screw it up and then don't do what they did.
The man can do well, even so well to real people who won't.
We cannot wait till kingdom come.
And this brings us to a lesson that I learned a long time ago from somebody who did a lot of sanding in their time. And that is, when your abrasives get loaded up and they stop cutting very well, don't just rub harder. Peel it off, get a new one. If in this case you gotta glue it down, that's fine. If you're just using a sander or a grinder or whatever, don't try and squeeze it out and rub it down to the very last little nubbins. It will waste your time and your efforts, and the surface finish won't be exactly what it's supposed to be, which in this case isn't that big of a deal, but it's kind of a deal. So there's that. Also, get a view of my back of the napkin engineering, minus the napkin. This whole thing has been done basically by eyeball with no real plan whatsoever. And I mentioned this before in my little 1-minute tooltip thing that basically nobody listened to, so I'll say it again here. Electric die grinders are outstanding, and I greatly prefer them to the pneumatic variety. And this is why. You can just load them up, really push into the material, and they have so much better torque response, and they just cut. It's smooth, and they don't chatter and break off nearly as easily. They'll still do it. I mean, it's very important to hold your part steady and your tool steady, but look at this thing. It just makes it like butter. It just really plows through it.
Fucking shallow be thy name. A kiss before I leave. Before we're running out of time. Give me a reason to believe. Before I die. We cannot wait till kingdom come. Well, till we're running out of time. Give me a reason to be strong. Before I die.
So I feel like it's worth noting why these parts are smoking that way. That's because they were made out of galvanized 1.5-inch pipe. Because I didn't buy enough material during my initial material purchase. And all the shops were closed on the weekend when I was doing this work, and I'm kind of antsy and impatient, so one thing led to another. That makes fools of us all. But learn from that. Buy more material than you think you'll need. Buy more material than you're certain you will need.
'Cause there's better things in life. Let's face it. Give your big slip. Give your big slip. Give your big slip. Give your big slip. Put your dead down. Put your dead down. Don't be a fucking slob.
And hey, remember that little guy? I remember that little guy. Let's put him to work. So first, we find that some tubular Chinesium has been delivered via eBay. Huzzah! The internet is amazing sometimes. And yeah, checking it over, it exists. It's got a couple little dings on the end, but it's alright. For, what is it, 50 or 60 bucks, it shows up at your house and you can use it. Though I will admit, it is not very good tubing. It's rather quite thin, and its stainless abilities are very much up to question, so we'll find that out sooner or later. Now, I have to say that the reason I've been getting into such granular detail when I'm showing like myself cutting and measuring and all this other stuff is because I've grown to dislike a lot of videos where it's like, oh yeah, you lift a valve cover and suddenly you got a whole engine rebuild done, right? But I also realize that you don't need to see this every time. So I'm going to show this section and the rest of this video, and after that you won't really see me doing as much of this cutting stuff because it's very repetitive and it just doesn't need to be seen every single time. I will make a more in-depth video on the cold saw and how I set my angles up and all that, but other than that, yeah, this is the best and last time you're probably going to see this kind of assembly work. Or I should say, the best and last time from me, because there's somebody else out there doing it way better, I'm quite certain.
The black is black, in fact. The true evidence is lily white. Come back to me. Think you are so brutal, so grim, so cold, but even Satan is a body. Compared to me, you see. Are you ready? Are you ready? To black metal, no, you're not, and you never fucking will be. Are you ready? Are you ready? To black metal, no, you're not, and you'll never fucking be. Never fucking be. Never fucking be. Never fucking be. My face is hard and cleans with the shimmer of death. I drink your blood as if it's ice day. To me it's bare-faced to walk around without corpse paint, even if you're doing fucking like me. Are you ready? To black metal, no, you're not, and you never fucking will be. Are you ready? Are you ready? To black metal, no, you're not, and you'll never fucking be. Never fucking be. Never fucking be. Never fucking be. Beware ye who cast the fucking gate. Bring a century to a criminal failed concert.
So there is a point at any one of these projects where you enter sort of what some people call the pit of despair, which is where you realize how enormous the undertaking really is and how much you have to do to actually get it done. This is very easy to conceptualize in your mind, but we have one major stage done now, and we've got some things crossed off the list, and yeah, there's a long ways to go, but you can see the top of the mountain now. All you gotta do is keep chugging away. If you stay with me, I promise I will get it done, and you'll see it make noises and go down the road.